There's massive transitions with growth. You go from everybody sitting in one room to, we've got multiple locations. There's hundreds of people I've never met. There's, the culture changes and shifts and morphs as you scale, and what you do changes and morphs and scales. And sometimes you do stuff that you really don't like doing, but somebody has to do it. And then sometimes the business grows into a space where you're happy with your role again. And the issue is whether you can get through those transition points. The growth transition points are massively stressful. Working yourself out of being key to operations. There's tons of little examples along the way that are surprisingly difficult to do. And if you start, so kind of one of the key when we started the business, we said, no, we're going to I watch cricket, like I love cricket, and we said we'd actually take, when there was a test match at the Wanderers, which is relatively near our office, it's our own business, we'll take a day or two and we'll go watch test match cricket. It took 9 years for us to do that, right? 9 years after founding the business, we actually took a day and went to watch test cricket. You get caught up in what you're doing, and you're passionate about the journey, and that has joys in and of itself, but it requires really significant stamina. Growth comes with stress points. So an example would be when you're really, really small, you don't need an HR person, right? Because you are the HR person, right? So when you're a certain size, you then need an HR person. The thing is, with very high growth, you cross these stress points way quicker than you can actually deal with them. So if you're in a big organization, you barely grow, nothing changes, these stress points never come along. Okay? When you're in a medium growth business, what happens is you cross these stress points, you notice, I need an HR person, let's find an HR person, let's figure out what they're going to do, let's have a proper job description, let's map out their process, let's have policies, let's kind of do all that kind of stuff, interview a whole lot of people, hire that person, bring them in. In a high growth environment, you go, we need an HR person. And before you've even got around to speccing the job's changed, because it used to be to manage kind of 5 people, now it's to manage 10. And you go, okay, it's to manage 10. So we've interviewed people, they're the wrong people because we interviewed at too low a level. We've actually now got 40 people. Okay, so now the people we interviewed in the second round were also wrong. So now, and then you've got some other stress points. You need some finance people, you need some accounting people, you need processes, you need systems. Excel's not going to do anymore. All that kind of stuff, right? So what happens is they come at you really, really fast. So with significant growth, and we've got, if you look at our numbers, we've got that hockey stick that most people project, right? So our past shows that kind of ridiculous exponential growth, and no 1 month stands out. What's interesting is if you look at our growth, there's just these little steps, and when we looked at them in the moment, when we looked at our finances, when we looked at our accounts, it looks like such a small step, but when you look at the graph, it's insane and monumental. So what we did right up front is kind of, we acted like we were going to be big. Okay, so we actually, there were 3 of us in the business. To get an account paid, somebody else had to sign it off. There was forms, there's 3 of us in a room. But we set it up to make sure that when we were going to grow, that certain of the key processes were already in place. And then you never put enough in. You never notice the wall until you hit it. So, nice example, how many people can one person manage? Well, so firstly, all your initial people are self-managing. They don't really require very much management. So you go, okay, well, if we double the business, we still don't really require very much management. Surely people just get on and do what they're meant to do. But the reality is they don't, apparently. Apparently, with a certain number of people, give or take 10 to 12, okay, you need somebody to manage that. What do they actually do? We weren't all that sure about, right? Okay, other than tell other people to do their jobs, which we thought they could do on their own, but that doesn't actually happen. So what happens is people get stretched. So we hire one person to manage people because it's not obvious that what they do, and then you scale a bit and they're fine. You scale a bit and they're fine. You scale a bit and they're fine. You scale a bit, and then everything falls over. Right? Okay, so because they go from managing to manage 20 people to when you add 21, they don't manage anybody. It's not like they manage the same 20 people, they're fine, and the one person's off loss, but everything falls over, and you go, oh, we should have noticed that. and you start adding layers to manage scale. And it's about removing people from the process, embedding processes, documenting processes, turning yourself into kind of the corporate you never wanted to work for. If you're successful, you have to actually, you end up looking like that. Except we have table tennis tables and stuff like that. Okay, so, and nobody has an office. But and the only time I wear a suit and tie is when I'm in London, okay, or New York, and certainly not in Johannesburg. But those scaling issues, and then about letting go and not doing stuff yourself, is stuff that allows you to get big and allows you to grow. And a lot of people can't get, they can get to a certain level and then they go, people don't scale, right? So if you're key to something, that piece can't scale while you're key to it. And if it's key to the business, that's where your business will stop. So there's the guy who's a plumber, and he says, okay, he's a good plumber, so he hires somebody to help him be a plumber. Then he faces a choice as to whether he's going to buy another vehicle and hire somebody else to work for him that he can't see, right? And he can't manage. And maybe he's not as good a plumber as that person. And at that point they go, that's actually not for me, right? Okay, I want to do the work. I want to make sure that it's done right and done perfectly. Or they can have a process in place to make sure that the other person they hire is trained and is capable. And so they can choose to step back from being the plumber and invest time in developing the process and the training and the operations to allow other people to be their plumbers and deliver in the same scale or the same quality or the same craftsmanship as they would. And that transition is often very difficult for people, very difficult for me, very difficult for everybody. It's just to let go and let other people do the stuff that you were doing yesterday. What we've done is we've started to deliver product to diabetics. So that's 8.5% of South Africa. So that, in case people can't do the math, our niche is now like over 26% of the South African employed population, which is a fairly huge niche, and we're largely uncompeted. So when it comes to diabetes, we can do some similar things. We can change people's mortality. We can give them kind of a real-time great experience in when they apply for life insurance. We can make it easy, we can make it affordable, and we can kind of walk the long path with our clients. So we're doing that in South Africa, and we're starting to roll out in South Africa and grow that business in South Africa. Diabetes is 8.5% of the world's population. So in the UK there are 4.1 million diabetic adults. In the US there are 33 million. In India there are 98 million. In China there are 135 million. So clearly this is a big market wherever you go, and it's largely underserved by life insurance businesses for the same reason that HIV was underserved in South Africa. So we're growing into this market in South Africa. And simultaneous to that, we're now in discussions with some of the largest life insurance businesses in the world to deliver product to diabetics in their market, and we would stand behind them. So we would. You'll never see our brand. It'll be kind of AllLife inside, but kind of big brands starting to deliver product to diabetics, which are kind of big numbers of people in around the world, and kind of we'll be in the background helping support the process, kind of walking the path with the client on their behalf, doing a chunks of the admin, and actually being able to price and manage the process. So if you are diabetic, you can kind of theoretically get life insurance. It's just really not easy and pretty expensive, and we can kind of change that model. So we think it's pretty exciting. The life companies we've engaged with think it's pretty exciting. I think that although things take forever, right? so probably sometime in where are we? Sometime towards the end of 2016, you'll probably see people starting to market diabetic products, and maybe you'll think back to this interview and you go, well, I wonder. And probably we're in the background. Having a certain level of credibility enabled access to different, call it more senior people in different roles. On the capital side, kind of I knew people, ex-private equity. It meant that I know what funds are looking for, and I've sat on the other side of the table. I know what kind of the key things that when they're looking to deploy their capital, what do they need to hear you say. So firstly, nobody invests in an idea. Okay. People invest in businesses, not ideas about businesses. Okay? So you have to have a business. What is a business? You have to, so there's some choices here. So you have to have some customers. Okay? You can be post-revenue. You can actually be able to generate some money. You may not be making any money, but you've generated some. Okay? Or you can be post-profit. So those are kind of you have an operator. So kind of you've proved the concept by having a few customers. You post-revenue and you post-profit, and those are the kind of different spaces, and different funds will focus in those different areas. So, and if you go talk to a fund that's not focused in your area, it doesn't make a difference what you have, right? The other thing is there's the industry that you're focusing at, and different funds have different mandates. So they will only invest in fintech, right? So if you have neither of those words when you describe your business, then you're probably talking to the wrong people. It doesn't make a difference how good your pitch is, it's irrelevant, right? So they have certain constrained mandates, and you can normally look those up on the web. They want to get you out of their process as quickly as possible. They only want to see people they might possibly invest in. So understand, kind of what their framework is, what their mandate is. They have received capital from somebody who has said you are allowed to do this with it. Right? So they have a mandate. They also have a timeline. So after a certain period of time, if you haven't deployed the capital, you have to give it back to your funders. So if you're talking to people at the end of their investment horizon, they are actually quite desperate to find good opportunities to deploy that capital. It's not necessarily true that all the power sits on the private equity side. The guys do actually have to find places to deploy the capital, and if you're a good opportunity for them, then that's worthwhile. You also need to understand the duration of their funds. So there are a lot of private equity funds that are 5-year funds. We didn't talk to them, right? Because I wasn't interested in driving towards a return of capital that quickly, because it drives certain behavior. So if it's a 5-year fund, they have 2 years to deploy their capital. If you're talking to them towards the end of that, they have 3 years to get their money back, which means you have to have done certain things, and you have to have committed to certain processes that will allow them to actually extract that value and get their capital out of you as a business. And so if you understand where they're coming from, you can go, well, these are the funds that actually focus on my areas. These are the guys who actually are still looking to deploy capital. They're long enough duration. If they only talk about being in kind of a post-revenue environment, then make sure you talk about that. Make sure you highlight where you are in the business development stage, what the key challenges are coming. So you know about the problems that come with scale, and the problems that will come with growing an organization. Be able to talk to it, highlight that you've thought through the business, have a proper financial model that you built, right? Okay. Because doing it, whether or not your numbers make any sense is one side. The other side shows that you've thought about it, right? So it shows that you've given thought to kind of the implications of how the business is going to turn out, and that indication of thought and awareness. And if people ask questions, let them ask the questions. You should know the answers, because the questions they ask should be relatively obvious, right? Yeah? And you should have asked them before. And kind of part of the interaction is to see that you've thought about it. Yeah? The other part is to see whether your answers make any sense at all, right? So you need that combination. And then it's like anything else, you get better with practice. So if you're going to try and raise capital, choose someone you're not expecting to succeed with first, and practice. And then choose somebody else you're not expecting to succeed with, and practice again. It's like job interviews, it's like dating. I don't know, the first time is always a little confusing. So learn a bit, practice on not your best possible candidates. Don't just go talk to one party. Largely, nobody's looking to steal your idea. Okay, so I'm paranoid. I was paranoid. We raised capital so most of the capital providers actually are insurance companies. So if you look at private equity companies, they raise money from pension funds. Pension funds are controlled by insurance companies, who are our natural competition. So we didn't go to any of the traditional private equity funders. The first funders we found were great bunch of venture capital guys who were largely focused in agriculture. And we told them our story. and it wasn't in their framework, it wasn't in their mandate, but it's a great story. And we explained why we were talking to them, and there's specific reasons why we were talking to them, and that resulted in our first investment. But they were totally out of our world. They were, kind of goes against everything I've just said. But in particular, kind of in the insurance world, you're somewhat constrained, or you're constrained slightly differently.